All right, hopefully you're back from your break. So we're going to get into lesson 5. So go ahead and open up the Unit 4 Lesson 5 classwork document. It's labeled Unit 4 Lesson 5 classwork, Asynchronous week. Open this up, and you are going to complete activity number 1. We're just going to do a little bit of transition words practice. So answer these questions. And remember, you have notes on these transition words. In Unit 4, Lesson 2, I also put the table here in these slides. So if you want to pause and just kind of review what these words mean, feel free to do that. So answer those questions in the document, and then you're going to enter your answers here in the Edpuzzle. Okay, so you should have entered your answers into the Edpuzzle. We're going to review those answers. So the answer to question 1 was D, however. The reason for that is that the first paragraph talks about this man, Bill Robinson, as, and all the good things that he did for the Black community in his time. And then in the second paragraph, it talks about how his persona started to become problematic and how different Black actors and celebrities had sort of negative opinions of this Bojangles persona. So up here, good stuff about him. Down here, not so good stuff about him. So we are contrasting. So that means however is the right word. Question 2. The answer was D, furthermore, and this is because we are adding on another African-American cultural figure who had a negative opinion of him, right? So this person, Lena Horne, didn't care for him, and then this person also called him the quintessential Tom, because of his cheerful and shameless subservience to whites in film. So these are like both negative opinions of him from other Black cultural figures. So we're adding on. So that means furthermore is the right word to use. Finally, question 8, the answer was C, because down here we are transitioning into sort of a different view of him. So up here we have these opinions of him as sort of like subservient to white people, how he's not good for the image of Black people. On the other hand, in real life, he was the sort of man who would aggressively, ask for his rights. So we want to use C, on the other hand, to contrast those two ideas. Okay, so stamp your answers down here. So what is the relationship between paragraph 1 and paragraph 2, and how do you know? And then justify the correct answer to question 2. So I want you to stamp down here and then stamp in the Edpuzzle. I want you to put your stamps in the Edpuzzle right now as well. Okay, so moving along to our last activity of the day. So in your classwork, you have some questions about analyzing structure analysis. So I want you to just brainstorm. There's no like right or wrong answer to these questions. I just want to get us thinking about structure and what that means. Enter it into the Edpuzzle, like your answer to any one of these questions. What does structure mean when we're talking about a book? I'll add that. What does structure mean when we're talking about a book or a story? What questions should we ask ourselves when we analyze structure? What should we look for in the book as we are annotating if we are analyzing the structure? So answer any one or more of these questions in the Edpuzzle just to get us thinking before we answer these questions. Okay, so to analyze structure, I'm going to go through some steps. I'm also going to put these slides up in Google Classroom so you can review these steps. So first we want to, in whatever passage we're looking at, we want to identify the gist of each paragraph, right? Asking ourselves just what is happening, right? We want to make sure we literally understand what's going on. And then we want to combine those gists to create a main idea for the passage as a whole. So in your classwork document, questions 1 and 2 ask you to do this about pages 9 through 12 in your copy of The Bluest Eye. So starting from Nuns Go By to the end of the episode about Claudia's sickness, where it talks about someone with hands that does not want me to die. So go ahead and in your classwork document, answer those first two questions. So find that part of the book and answer those first two questions. Just summarize what happens in those paragraphs. And then based on this passage, how would you characterize the McTeer family? How would you describe this family? Go ahead and do that in your classwork document. Okay, so hopefully, you got your summary said something like Claudia gets sick. She feels like no one cares about how she's feeling. Her mother scolds her for getting sick. Then she reflects on the fact that she actually was loved, even if in that moment she didn't feel like loved or cared for in the way that she would have wanted. Okay, so based on that summary, I'm going to have you answer question 2. I'm not going to do it for you. Okay, so to continue analyzing structure, right, after we have the gist, we want to, for structure, we want to think about a couple of things. We want to think about the order of ideas, right? What happens first, second, third? Where is there a shift? And types of structures used. So what paragraphs discuss the same idea? Where do I see a shift in ideas? And then types of structures are things like, are they telling an anecdote? Are they reflecting on this anecdote from later in the narrator's life? Kind of like Claudia reflects back on her illness later in life, right? And how she felt then and how it might not have been exactly reality. Or is the author describing a person or place in detail, right? These moves that the author makes. And then finally, we want to explain the function of each of those structural components, right? Those parts, right? Anecdote, reflection, as it relates to the passage as a whole by asking questions such as, why do the ideas come in this particular order, right? Why do we put the reflection after from when the narrator is an adult? Why are we putting that reflection after the anecdote from their childhood? What does that do for our conception of the theme or the characters in the story? What would be the impact on the overall meaning if this section was at the beginning instead of at the end? Or what if it just wasn't there at all? What meaning would be lost? Right? So that's like thinking about function. Function means like, what does this do for the whole? What does this tell me about the theme of the story as a whole, or this character as a whole? So function, right? What does this do for me? And then another question you could ask is, how does this part of the passage, such as an anecdote, description, reflection, whatever it is, how does this contribute to the theme or bigger idea, right? Function. What does this do for the big idea? Okay, so with those questions, and again, please, use these notes as you answer these questions and just do your best to answer these questions. I want you to enter your answers for questions 3 and 4 in the Ed puzzle. So 3 is a multiple choice, 4 is a open answer. So go ahead and do that now. Okay, so hopefully you answered those questions in the Ed puzzle. So the answer for question 3 is C. It provides context for the anecdote in the following paragraphs. So let's talk about that paragraph where it says, our house is old, cold, and green. It's talking about, the way adults would react when when children got sick. So it provides context for how Claudia's mother reacts when she gets this sickness, right? So she tells this anecdote about when she got sick. This paragraph tells us some context for, like why adults react this way. when Claudia gets sick. And then question 4, the function of paragraphs 4 through 8, right? So when Claudia is describing how she was treated and cared for when she got sick, which was like kind of harsh, it makes it seem like she's not being cared for very kindly, right? That kind of characterizes the family as unloving. That's kind of the function, right, of like that. It gives us Claudia's childhood perception of how she didn't feel like she was properly cared for, or no one cared how she felt when she was sick. So that's the function of paragraphs 4 through 8, right? But then it shifts at the very end in paragraph 12, right? So we have the function of paragraphs 4 through 8 is to kind of make us see like, oh man, these parents are kind of mean. But then something happens in paragraph 12, right? Was it really like that? As painful as I remember. So then you're going to answer the rest of these questions. So you are going to complete activity number 2 for the rest of your time in class. This should take you no more than 20 minutes. I do not want you to spend more than 20 minutes finishing these questions. Don't turn in this document yet. When you're done with activity 2, we're going to do the exit ticket next class. So you should have turned in Unit 4, Lesson 4. That should be turned in. Unit 4, Lesson 5, do not turn that in yet. Feel free to get in touch with any questions that you have, and I will see you later.